My talk today is something very general, and this is the first time I'm talking about the general aspects, the scenario in heritage conservation in India, mainly the challenges. Till now, I have been talking about the technicalities of conservation, like conservation of some specific material, wall paintings, or some particular object or sculpture. So, mainly it is about the case studies and all. But this is something I always wanted to talk about, and I have been talking about, but not in a formal setup of all the people who are actually interested in heritage conservation. Heritage, as we know, is tangible, intangible, natural, or environment. But here I'll be restricting my talk about the tangible, which includes the object collections, artifacts, art, and the built heritage. Now, another classification of the tangible heritage can be like starting from the landscapes to the monuments, the complexes, the religious temple complexes, churches, mosques, etc., and historical houses, cultural object collection in the museum, and archival collections. We have our national archives, we have state archives in different states. So there is huge documentation which needs to be conserved or preserved. Then there are film and audio archive collections also. We have our National Film Archive in Pune. Now, I'll just start with something very basic. Like we all talk about heritage conservation, and it appears that everything is going smooth and we are doing whatever is required like any other developing nation. But let's see what are the basic challenges and what are the evolving challenges in our field of work. The basic challenges are something that we need to look into immediately. We don't have proper policies in place. So the decision making is at times very difficult. It's not easy to decide upon what needs to be done at a particular site or in a collection. We'll talk about it in later slides also towards the end. Then second is the education. We have some good institutes which are carrying out masters in conservation. And I read in Niti Aayog report also that we have very good institutes and all, but from my point of view, if I see, and I've seen the education about conservation in different countries also, we are lagging behind. And none of the courses that are presently being conducted is a comprehensive course, except at maybe a few of them. But again, there's a huge lacuna. If you talk about generally in India, if you talk about conservation, it is mainly you'll go to a conservation architect. And it is thought that because we consider just the built heritage as the heritage of India, but okay, even in that case, what I have seen, I've worked with different architect conservators, and in my team also I wanted to include so that it is a complete team to work on a monument or site. But somehow, whatever fresh conservation architects came to me for internship or something, there is nothing as far as the material conservation is concerned. So there's a huge lacuna. None of the conservation architects I have tried to work with knows, they don't have that in their course content. Basically what they know is the lime mortar, which again has been evolved too much in the conservation field so that we know where to use what kind of lime. And by kind of lime, I mean that we have modified it for the conservation purpose. Because there are so many different places where there is a mud plaster, and over the mud plaster we have a lime, thin layer of lime plaster and all. So we need to know what is the requirement, how strong we need it, how to modify its properties for the conservation purpose. So that aspect is not taught. It is only they know about the lime mortar. So the basic challenges, because whoever is guiding also in our country, I am a part of it. Just the difference is that I'm trying to, since last 25 years, I'm trying to update my knowledge by reading and participating in various activities. So, but if we go by just the education, it is not sufficient. So the basic challenges in our country is lack of the proper policies and decision making. It affects decision making and the education. Or rather, policies and education both affect the decision making, because if we don't know the education is not proper, the knowledge base is not proper, then also decision making is affected. I also wanted to mention here that um, I'm forgetting that thing. There was another point that came to my mind, but okay.
Just just the background noise could be reduced. Maybe participants, if the door, if it anything is open, it can be shut.
I'll just do that. Door band kar dena मुझे. Uh, just a minute. Soma, आवाज नहीं कर रही. बंद कर दे. Is it better? Any better now?
Yeah, okay.
Not exactly. I'll take out this microphone and you just tell me if it
No,
is better.
no. The noise was okay. That was your voice is okay. Everything perfect, but only the thing there was some background noise. So that's because everyone is muted. It is only your mic is on. That's it.
Rather, actually, at my place, there is nobody making noise. It's only me in this hall. And is it better now?
Yes, acha. Yes. Okay, maybe. Yes, that is
I've
better.
taken out the microphone
So
and
maybe
I'm by direct.
fine.
Maybe it was by the microphone. Yeah, it wasn't connected properly.
Okay.
So, is it better now?
Yes, madam. We'll see. We'll
Am
see.
I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. So the next category of challenges, apart from the basic challenges in policy making and education, there are some evolving challenges. Like with the upgradation in this field of conservation, we find new meanings of conservation. Like the scientific paradigm of the discipline from the scientific objective has shifted to the postmodern cultural standpoint, because we are now more inclusive. This will come in the second point. The decision process involving many stakeholders and the search for a balance between the use of new and traditional knowledge techniques and material in diverse cultural contexts. So that is the second challenge we have. And third is the renewed importance of conservation ethic for professional practice. Till now, hardly we have any ethical approach. Wherever we go, we find a lot of previous conservation work done without any ethics. And since there is no guidelines, there are no guidelines in place. So this is more so. I'll just again go through these 3 points. First is the change or shift in the scientific paradigm of the standpoint. This is because now it is not just very scientific thing that we are doing. It is more inclusive. We are including the cultural aspects, the people related to it, we take the public inclusive. And second is that the decision process uh, involves many stakeholders. It is not just decision of one particular department or organization. They take into account different stakeholders, and there is also a search for the balance, because if you go for the traditional knowledge and techniques, at times, like I mentioned, mud plaster, it is not feasible to preserve it by using more mud plaster, because in most of the sites where I've seen there is mud plaster, there was termite also, and the wall paintings were just falling off because a hollow was being created behind the wall painting and between the brick and the painted lime plaster layer. So whatever the mud plaster was, it was being eaten away by the termites. So at times we need something beyond just our liking for the traditional technique. So a balance has to be maintained between the traditional techniques and materials and the more modern ones. And the importance of ethics, because ethics are now taken more seriously and they are also evolving. So these are the things where I think we need a lot of work, and these are the evolving challenges. Now let's see the structure, how the heritage conservation is being managed in our country, or maybe in other countries also. We have a Ministry of Culture, then we have conservation consultants who might be consulting the Ministry of Culture of center as well as in different states. We have departments of culture. And there are consultants with those departments also at the state level. Then we have custodians and caretakers. There are many monument complexes and monuments where there are multiple custodians. I've seen a little place having more than 30 caretakers or custodians, or those who have some role in that. And then conservators in practice. So those who are given the responsibility of taking care or conserving or restoring the particular monument or complex of monuments. So let's see how these things work. Let's see where are the gaps or insufficiencies in this particular framework. At ministerial or government level, there are no guidelines or policies regarding heritage management and conservation. Here, I would like to mention that though the government is working on it right now, after a long now, at least they have started working, and I've seen some documents being prepared, but nothing conclusive. And another thing is that if I see the report on Niti Aayog, it is mainly on built heritage and the site museums. And even in that, there's a big gap. I wanted to put a snapshot of that document over here, and where I find the gap, where it is about the museums, all the guidelines or whatever gaps, they are also calling it gaps, and they are giving some recommendations. But there is a huge another gap without which all other gaps, they won't matter. Like they are talking about interpretation. They are talking about, I don't remember, there were 2, 3 points, very general. But if you take out the objects from an excavated site, and there's an on-site museum, you just display it in that museum which is nearby. But if they were in the ground for so long and they were preserved. But if you're putting them in a stagnant environment of a little display case with no microenvironment control, then they would deteriorate in that. They will suddenly deteriorate very fast because they will be now in an air which is stagnant also. So there's a huge gap where there's no mention of any guidelines on how the excavated objects should be put on a site museum, in the storage and in display, which is most important. Now, whatever is in place is incomplete. That is what I just mentioned. There are things in place, but they are not complete. They're missing some very fundamental aspects. At education and expertise level, I would like to say, there are not enough universities taking up this specialization. Though we proudly say that we have some institutes which are carrying out education in conservation, heritage conservation, but I don't think that this again needs a lot of work upon means in deciding the course structure, because I have found that there are institutes which are mainly focusing on the built heritage. There are institutes which are focusing mainly on the objects, but the degree doesn't specify that. And there are other organizations which have a particular degree, but that particular aspect of conservation, which the degree also mentions, is not even 25%. It is nearly 10 to 15%, not even that, if I may say that. So there are not enough universities. And whatever few universities that have this subject are not having a proper course structure covering all aspects of heritage conservation. There is also a shortage of competent faculty. Now, the main people, like I mentioned, the four main components, the government department, Ministry of Culture, then there were consultants, and then there were caretakers and trusts or the custodians, and then there were conservation experts. If you talk about the experts, there are at two levels: conservation consultants and the conservation experts who are doing the practice, who are actually executing the restoration work and all. So, talking about the consultants first, because experts will come into action only when the consultant at a higher level with the ministry or of the national level or state level are giving the proper advice. So the consultants must be rather masters or PhD in conservation of cultural property, and they might also, the consultants might include the conservation architects also. So there are two different things. Conservation architects would be helpful in designing the whole concept of, you can say, the urban heritage conservation of the landscape or the complexes, and taking an overall view of the state or a particular city. But to work at the micro level and to have an understanding of the micro level of the structure, of the material, of the fabric of the structures, and different objects associated with them, attached to them, like certain sculptures and all, some artwork made on the structure, or they can be collections along with the structure. So for that, you need conservation expert, material conservation expert. Not so there are two different roles, and I think the consultant should not just be the conservation expert or not just be the conservation architects. It needs to be a combination of these. Are they available now? Another thing is now how, from where the conservation consultants or experts are coming from. They are eligible because they have some master's or PhD degree in conservation. So in our country, are the available master's course structures sufficient? Or are there some major gaps and insufficiencies in education, in these educational platforms? So this is a big challenge for us, that if the experts or if the education is not proper, then you won't get good experts or consultants, and everything will fall apart. There won't be proper policies in place, there won't be proper guidelines, and the whole process of conservation, which we proudly talk about in certain case studies and all, won't be, it would be just for some time, it won't have that deeper impact for ages, for what we are working to preserve the heritage for ages. So this is a big challenge, the education, which will lead to how we consult the ministry, how we consult the custodians, and how we execute the heritage conservation or restoration. Now I'll talk about the built heritage to some extent. This is a picture from Hampi. And this is a picture from a temple complex in Hoshiarpur, in a little forest. There's a forest area, and at the edge of that forest, there's this temple. It is Krishna temple, and but it had such a beautiful evidence of history, of how the people of that time, nearly 150 years old, how they thought, how what was their idea of religion and even the politics and the talent also, how they made these paintings. I am not going into the detail. I couldn't get enough time to put more pictures. Where this is a portion of the rooms around the main temple, which is now no more there. And I am surprised that how it just vanished. There was a little circular temple structure in the middle when I visited the site in 2007 or 8. But after many years, when I was working at Golden Temple and all, then I got to know about this, that there's some work. And when I reached this site again after many years, the temple, the main temple structure, a little one, a circular one in the middle, was no more there. And there was no evidence of any, there were so many paintings in that also. Not even the pieces or remains of that were there. And these there were some rooms they were remaining, and because they had some huge a large amount of wall paintings. One room had all the floral patterns and the other one had this religious things. This is the outside of the room. In the inner side there are all the Hindu mythology pictures of Swarg Narak, how the record is being taken of those who are dying of their good sins and good deeds and all. And apart from all those mythology pictures, they had this Guru Nanak Dev Ji with Bala Mardana, and they had Maharaja Ranjit Singh just behind this panel. And the wall just behind this particular wall, the other side of this wall had these paintings. And so, and there was a train, the portion here, and this boy is working to stabilize the falling of painting. Actually, this is of train. So it was British time, and this is a steam engine, and a train is going with all the smoke. So this is the picture of that time and what they were seeing, the developments and the ideology and everything. And it is not that, and all the dwarpals, here you see a little portion of a dwarpal. All, there were 3 doors, and there were 2 dwarpals on each door. So there were 6 in all, and they were all turbaned 6. So there was no divide of the cultures. There were just these English people. There was another war shown over there in the inner area, which was, I think, Anglo Sikh war, and all the different communities together were depicted in these rooms. So to preserve these things, actually, if you preserve the structure, like this was given to a civil contractor. The main contract always goes to a civil contractor who has no know-how of the conservation aspect. So this portion is redone by that team. And a little, you can see this reddish mortar, which is not exactly the one which was being used in this particular monument, though this is the same mortar which is being used in other sites in the same state, say Punjab. But this was done in not after the study of this site. So even if you stabilize the structure, you fill the gaps with the bricks or mortar, more important is are the stories written on these walls, on these structures. And a lot of these were not taken sensitively. There were some areas which were not taken care of because there was no proper consultant at that level who can influence the civil contractor to do as it should be done. So in the build structure, you will find so many things which are actually talking to you, which are telling stories. And we need to be more sensitive towards how even the build structure should be handled and restored or conserved. This is another such structure, and it is very saddening when I see, like, it is this was closed when this picture was taken in long time back in 2000, again 8 9 somewhere. And it was one door was open just to click a picture, and it is dark, but we can see the remains of some golden sheen because we used flash. It was taken by a small camera and flash, and this is a building, so it is a structural conservation project, but it has its own collection. You can see the furniture in this room, and it has its own story. It has its own um, information about how things were done or made in that particular era. This is Sheesh Mahal, and this particular portion is the Rang Mahal. If you go through this door on the left to the other side, that is Sheesh Mahal. In most of the monuments at that time, they had one Sheesh Mahal, one Rang Mahal. In Rang Mahal, there would be all wall paintings in miniature style. I'll just show an enhanced picture image of the same picture. You see here, this I have shown this image because this is all gold work. It is all gold gilding in the wall paintings, not just at the borders, but also within the painting, the jewelry. And this is such a priceless experience, such a priceless thing. We don't make whatever great artists we have of this time, even in Rajasthan. I have worked so much with artists also. This is something we are losing, we are lost. And the insensitivity, you should see, it was also given to a civil contractor who didn't know the importance. And when I went I think last year only, and it was, I was like, I skipped a beat because it was all in shambles. It was like there were scaffoldings, everything was falling apart. But these paintings were being restored by, I don't know, a team of artists or what, and which I don't think it needed that much of intervention if it had been done in a proper way. If we would have preserved the paintings first before going for the structural conservation, which I always suggest wherever possible, that we should protect first what the walls are saying, the stories on the walls, and it can be done easily. And then we can start the structural work, like even in the last picture that you saw, the ceiling was no more there. Whatever was left was to be taken off, and a proper ceiling had to be created. And it was important to preserve the paintings also. But what we did in that case was, I requested them that please let me protect all the paintings, give a facing to the painting which protects it to a large extent, and then you can work on the ceiling. And then after the ceiling was done, we removed the facing and we worked on the wall paintings to preserve them. So these are the things that I'm saying, the gaps. Like, we don't have any guidelines. If there is both structural and artistic work, how to go about it? What should be the steps? You can't just separate the two things. You give a work to the structural civil person and then to the art person. It cannot be done like that. They have to work in coordination. Now, where does the actual material conservator play his or her role? Let's see how it is working here. Whatever I've seen, there is Department of Culture, say in the state, and there's a civil contractor who's hired to restore a particular structure, and then there's a conservator called in later, and this is how it's working right now. But the conservator is in the last uh, position in the chain, so has not much of the say if the civil work has already been done. But there is, then we are told that there is a conservation consultant also. Generally, conservation consultants are, right now what this is being done, they are conservation architects. They visit the sites, they prepare a huge plan, like what needs to be done where. But it doesn't, the document, the detailed project report or anything, it doesn't exactly guide you how it has to be done. They create a point where it is said that this is artwork and it needs to be done, and and they also mention by a proper experienced conservate and qualified conservator, art conservator they call it. But the thing is very, this term is very misleading because there is no art conservator in our country. We have conservators who, even if who are trained from National Museum Institute, they are not just being trained for paintings, they are trained for objects also, for coins, for sculptures. So there's no art consultant as such. They are trained for the archival material and even for the mortars and the wall structures. So this is a strange kind of situation. The things which should have been put by a proper trained conservator initially in the document, which would have been the guideline for rest of the contractors to work upon and have proper experienced conservators, is not in place. So there's a confusion. So this is a big challenge to form a proper guideline how to go about the heritage structures and the art associated with it. So in present scenario, it is a challenge to make decision makers understand that the structural conservation should be executed. And even, yeah, I missed this thing. Even in the civil work, even in the structural work, it is being done by contractors, civil contractors who are not having any knowledge or training or experience in the conservation of the structures, the conservation of the walls, or whatever the structural issues the monument is having. So this is what, in the present scenario, it is a challenge to make decision makers understand that the structural conservation also should be executed only by expert structural conservator or a civil engineer with specialization in heritage structures and material, and not by a general civil contractor. Conservation can be an effect. So this is something I read or studied sometime in my conferences or my reading somewhere, because most of the time I'm traveling and I try to read things. I don't remember the exact author of this particular thing, but this is a sentence that was stuck in my mind. I have just modified it, means added a few parts, like conservation can be an effective concept in the development of a country. Rather, he mentioned Amritya Sen, talking about how the conservation and the heritage conservation and development go together. And otherwise, if they are not in balance, then it can be disastrous, even the development. So it has to take along the conservation aspects. And in that, this sentence was mentioned, like conservation can be an effective concept in the development of a country if it is well understood and accepted by a large sector of population. Here, it is understood and accepted. It is not just if you are just understanding and not actually accepting that and doing anything for it. So by the large sector of population. Right now, even the general public doesn't know much about conservation. Even if they know that is not the exact thing, they don't exactly understand the ethics or how they can play a part. So large sector, it has to be understood and accepted by large sectors of population, politicians, administrators, intellectuals. What I added is the caretakers and trusts. They also need to understand, because I have now worked with some trusts also, or the caretakers, and development decision makers. Of course, those who are making the decisions in the Ministry of Culture, or the consultants also. So they are also playing a huge role in this decision making, in making those policies and the guidelines. So conservation can be an effective concept in development of a country if it is a well understood and accepted by large sectors of population, politicians, administrators, intellectuals, caretakers or trusts, and development decision makers. Now, what happens in the absence of such understanding at various levels? We'll see what happens like in this slide. This is again 100-year-old temple. And it's a huge, means this is a beautiful painting. And from a distance, and when this was taken, it wasn't treated. Now it is in the process of treatment, and we have found the 3D aspect in these paintings. 3D in the sense they are not flat. The jewelry is kind of stucco work and is gilded also. Even the pleats of certain fabrics shown, worn by these characters shown in the painting, they have a 3D aspect. They are not on the plain. The surface is not completely plain. And it is not for everything, like the door and all, but the main characters and the main structures. The central painting, a little left portion is visible, is of Jagannath Puri, shown in this temple as a painting. And even the small characters shown or the pieces shown, when we look up close, they are so precise, so nicely done. Now, this left painting is beautiful, and somehow um, the trust, because the understanding was not there of this conservation aspect and the ethics, so it was given to different painters and all, do something, they are falling apart, and do something, make it better, look better. And in the process, different artists came in, and I'm just showing one portion of one wall. There are other walls, and some other artists have done different work on that wall. And rather in the Garbhagriha, the whole, it was such a beautiful art, I can't tell you. It's like Ravi Verma, there were some copies of Ravi Verma paintings and other paintings. They were so natural, so realistic, but they were all over painted by some artists. And those artists, I don't say that it's anything wrong with their decision or their art, but they didn't know about the conservation. They need to preserve the thing, and they didn't know the material. So it wasn't their fault. It is the fault of the decision. And it is not even the fault of the decision maker, because they don't have the understanding. So that is, and they don't have any guidelines in place. There are no policies, there's nothing. So look at the right side. This painting was a beautiful painting. I have the original, I found it on internet. And this is overpainted in acrylic, and you can see the waves, they are no more that natural. The real character of the painting is all lost. This painting, on the left, though it is now right now not looking that good, but after conservation, we have already completed the cleaning aspect, and rather have come from that site only, and I didn't get time to put the pictures. I haven't yet got the complete picture after cleaning. It's so beautiful, and if I get time, I would love to share this. Maybe even in the questionnaire session, we can have a look. I'll see if I have on this laptop, and I'll show. It's everything is shining now. All the gold ornaments and the borders of the fabrics, they are shining. And the white color has come up so much well in various highlights, which are not visible at this moment in this picture. So what needs to be done was to conserve, to clean and consolidate this picture only, this painting only, rather than over painting it with a different material, which will ultimately come off and as peels, and it will damage the painting underneath also. Another example, this is what I want to say, like the understanding wasn't there with the caretakers of the trust. There is a trust, temple trust, but now they somehow, somebody guided them, and they contacted proper conservators, and now it is being done in a proper way. And these things happen, but it didn't happen in time. So for means one or two paintings are already lost, but still 90% can be saved. So understanding, and how many, some common person or a architect, he told them that this is something wrong that you're doing, and they then tried to figure out what should be done. So understanding at these levels is very important. The caretakers, those who are the custodians, the ministries, everything. And there should be some guidelines in place, so that anybody who has this kind of art or this kind of of heritage property, they can follow those guidelines. They should be easily accessible. These days we have everything on the in the phone. You just search it and the government guidelines or anything, it should come up. Now, this is a condition of one of the jharokas or windows of Golden Temple as it was earlier. And if somehow it wasn't, these also this there also this thing happened. One of the staircases had paintings. They were already broken because they were taking off the paintings and redoing the plaster and all. So they are no more there in one of the staircases. There are two staircases at the back. But in time, they were told, because there are so many people, general public, and everybody involved, and with the Golden Temple. So uh, in time, it happened, and somehow after that, even after that, because it is such a central place, there were many things that were very difficult because it is such a complex organization taking care of this artwork, this Golden Temple also. But somehow we could manage it. And this was the condition. And anybody who would see this condition would say that nothing can be done. It is already lost. This portion is lost. And they will remove whatever is left and replaster it. And that would be a kind of conservation done. But material conservator, the proper conservator who knows not just the art, but also the material associated with it, even the mortar. Here we knew that it was lime mortar, but lime mortar, not just simple lime mortar that we use. The civil contractor, they say they are heritage conservators now because they have done so much of lime mortar work in so many places, but they make the same lime mortar for every place. But there's a difference. We need to know if the painting is in fresco or tempera or what, because if it is fresco, then if you use a lime mortar, and lime mortar is very strong, when it dries, it is like stone. And the painting might be weaker than the strong lime mortar. And according to the law of physics, if two things are joined, one is weak and one is strong, of course they have to part with time. They separate. And in the process of separation, the weaker is lost. So if there is a painting which is weaker than this lime mortar that you have applied just next to it, then the lime mortar, the fresh lime mortar, would be more strong and the painting would fall apart. Not right now when you're applying mortar, but over the period of time. So we have a lot of research, not in India, sadly, but throughout the world on lime mortars, and they have developed different kinds of different. They have added certain ingredients to uh, differ the, you can say, the strength or the hardness, and they have added some resins also to improve the binding. So there are different types of lime mortars in conservation, especially for the wall painting conservation. And we need to know how we are filling the gaps near the painting, at the edge of the painting, where the damage is there, and filling the major gaps. So this all looks white, but maybe we have used lime mortar type M over here for strength, and lime mortar type A or Al near the wall painting. And then, of course, for the larger gap again, A or M. So this knowledge base is required, which is not there, not even with the conservators. In India, if you look into the conservation scenario, we hardly have those who are working, even you include me, for like doing work, and they're just working on and on. They have no time to study, to update their knowledge. And this is a sad scenario. We need to update knowledge. And that's why education, I said initially, also is the main challenging point. So this is after conservation. We filled the gaps and we created according to what was there. And in the next window, jharokas also, whatever was there, according to, after matching everything, we created. Because if it was an archaeological site, this also has to be understood. If it were ruins, we wouldn't have added any painting. Whatever was left, we would have left it there. We would have just cleaned these areas so that they don't look patchy. these ones, and the edges, we would have cleaned these edges. I should have had a better picture with after the cleaning, and we would have just left like that. Maybe we would have just subdued, toned down this white line. But if it is an active site, people are visiting, praying, these are then distractions. These are then, these patches are then disturbing. So for live sites, we should have a little different guideline where we can fill up these white gaps, though you can always distinguish between what is original and what is not in a scientific light, in different radiations, or by different techniques you can figure out. But this is how it was conserved. This is again another temple that I showed you in Hoshiarpur. These are the ruins. I said that the ceiling wasn't there, so it had to be. Now you see, this is a golai, and the curved area, and the paintings are on that also. Because we couldn't intervene, even after telling them again and again, the civil person, now they are heritage conservators because they have already worked, they have worked on this structure, heritage structure, they worked on different heritage structures. No one knows that they don't have, now they are experienced, so if you go by papers, the experience they can show. But what kind of experience? And you just see over here, that is all lost. This is the same Krishna, Gopiya and Krishna, the same painting. This is the painting has been conserved. These paintings have been conserved, so they are in much better position, but we couldn't do on this border of floral patterns because it was already lost and that filled with the brick. This could have been done like in a better way also, because on this side, if you see, I'll take a pointer. If you see here, they are still there. So if you could save in this area, which was more, and you could have saved in this area also. Maybe there's something on the top, but that was again taken out if you see the picture, because there can be discussion on this also. So, and the mortar is not the right one, because in this building, I know what were the different layers. We had taken the anatomy, we have taken the cross section also of these paintings. Now, this was all about the built heritage and how it is associated with various kinds of artwork and stories and all. And what are the gaps? Talking about the collections, museums and archives. Just now here in museums and archives, we have huge collections, thousands of objects, small and big, and paperwork in the archives, huge amount of paperwork. And there are two different types of housing these things, these precious old records or objects telling the stories about past. Either they are put in display or in storage, but they have an environment around them, they have some air around them. And if that air is balanced, means it is clear of the spores of various microorganisms or off-gassing of wood and other things, those chemicals and the spores, or it is a stagnant air. Generally, in our country, the display as well as storage is very stagnant. It is suffocating for the objects. They don't get the ideal kind of air around them. Let's see. This is a display case. Now, of course, it has been taken out, but I don't know when it will come back and whether it will come back in a right way or not. But a few years back, this was the display case for some precious, priceless manuscripts, miniature paintings and books. It is in wood. Wood is always off-gassing, no matter how good wood you take. And those gases are acidic and they brown the paper faster than usual in their usual aging. Another display case a few years back, now of course it has been taken out, the whole collection is out for so many years and not come back, maybe soon will come back. You can see those stains, dots at the back. These are fox marks. Fox marks are generally by um, the acidity and spores, iron components, maybe the component, maybe in the fabric that they've used. But again, this environment is stagnant. For these pieces, if they are in wood, if they're in metal, then it's okay. But if they're in wood and on some lacquer and all finishes there, it would be deteriorating for them. Textile. This is again taken off because of the damage the display was causing. The way they are folded and everything is wrong. If there is a gap, if it is not properly sealed, then whatever air goes inside, it can go inside from these gaps, but it cannot come out. It will settle down on the objects. Some air molecules, gases might be coming out, but not the dust. Another display, this is maybe right now also, it may be like this. The wooden book stand is a traditional one kind, not the original antique one made in a modern time. But again, there are gaps, so you can see the dust deposit. The book is not, the pages are not resting in their usual, the way they should rest. They are wavy because of the moisture trapped in this display case, and there is waviness, and this is not at all the ideal kind of display. From everything, the way the book is kept, the stand, the display case, the air inside the display case. Now, conservation or preservation of museum or archival collection needs special knowledge base and decision making. From these pictures, you would have understood, I think you should understand, that it is not a normal kind of, you can make any display case and put the objects in it, or make a almirahs. Even national level, I've seen almirahs, simple Godrej or metal almirahs, and the material is stored in those almirahs. It's not that thing. Conservation and preservation. For if you want to preserve them, you need to understand everything about the air around them and the material of which their houses, which are the display cases or the storage cabinets, are made. Who or what can help? Understanding and scientific know-how of not just the object. You should know, maybe it is a metal object, it can withstand that stagnant environment. If it is ivory or paper or a textile or a composite object, it might not. It would not, rather. So, understanding and the scientific know-how, what the object is made of, how it would react, that knowledge base for the object, for its immediate environment, which we call microenvironment, and for the environment of that area. Scientific knowledge of the environment of the understanding of the environment of the area. These three things are very important to decide upon what to do or how to go about in making of the storage cases, storage cabinets, or storage rooms, and display cases, etc., of a museum or archives. This is a slide I've taken from another of my lectures during this lockdown. It was about these objects. So let's see if there's a painting or a sculpture. Then if it is a painting, it will be framed. If it is a sculpture, it would be in a display case. Or if it is it can be a storage room or cabinet housing the objects. So there are three levels where there's very little air in the frame, more air in the display case, and even more air in a cabinet or the storage room. So those objects, they are in a system which can be a frame, a display case, or a storage room. So that is a system which we are studying, we are interested in. And the environment of that inside that system, which can be a frame, display case, or a cabinet room, is called the microenvironment. And rest of the environment around the surroundings, maybe if it is a frame, then the air beyond the frame of that room or hall, that is the surroundings or the environment. So we need to study, we need to understand the environment of that building, of the room, and the microenvironment of the frame or the display case or the storage room or cabinet. So managing different systems, like you have to manage the air within the frame and the air within a display case or air within a cabinet or a room. Oh, hmm. So in present scenario, it is a challenge to preserve cultural objects in a safe and controlled microenvironment. I'm coming very near to the end of my presentation. Now, many basic government policies are right now missing. Collection management policy, conservation policy, museum acquisition policy, integrated pest management. There was a long list that I wanted to put in here, but I didn't get time. This I have just added today morning or last night. That is the time I worked on this presentation. I wanted to add something that we don't have those policies, but at our level as a conservator, I'm working on these things, and we are designing the display cases, cabinets, frames, all with a controlled microenvironment. This is right now, it is still in the factory. It is not, I mean, in this picture, it is in the factory. It is not taken out. And we are now, they are done. Right now, they have reached their place where we'll be installing them. These are, we tried to create within our budget, because if we go for the display cases, which have a microenvironment control, I found two, three big companies, international companies, one from Italy, one from Germany, were making these cases, but they are in lakhs per, and we don't have that much of funds. So we should find alternatives. We should have within our country, we can work on that. And we have tried to create, because it's not necessary that you create an active control of air inside a display case with an electrical point which is controlling the humidity and everything within the case. It would be difficult, because for our small museums, we cannot have that much of expenditure of electricity, and even if we want to buy the system, that is also very costly. So we can find alternatives. We have some passive systems also, which do not require electrical consumption. And if we find that some object is very important and it needs that kind of thing, for that also we have created something which is dust proof and controlling the humidity and taking very less, not even like our fridges, our refrigerators are consuming continuous electricity in all our homes. That is much, much more than what we'll be choosing. It is just very slight electricity to create a dust-free positive pressure inside the cabinet. And so even if there are some gaps in the ceiling, there's no, we don't have to worry about it, because the air will never go inside. It will always be moving out of those gaps. And there are different things. We can do passive humidity control for certain objects which are in paper and all. We are not using wood. These are all in metal. And we will be putting, if you see, these are the same, the pictures, different pictures of the same display case. When it is closed, it would be like this. But we can open it. You can see a little gap at the base of this. And we are putting some controlling devices and some data loggers to check if that thing that we have put to control the humidity is working or not. So some data logger and some humidity control measures are put in there. Or if we need a dust-free environment for that particular object, or maybe for a particular time, we can switch on that thing and a positive pressure would be created, which will keep it dust-proof. So if you have heritage objects, you take it out from the earth, you dig it out, it was much better there. If you take it out and it is suddenly in a stagnant environment, and everything, all the deterrents are coming in but have no way to go out, then we are not doing justice to them. They were better there in their earlier place. So we are creating different cabinets and display cases of different shapes according to the object. If I haven't put another picture, I don't have, I think right now it is on my phone. For the frames also, for the archival material, this is for objects. And we have designed different things for, and right now, We have done it just for what there was a normal work that came to us. We could have done it like in India, we have done it in all the museums, state or national level. We could have made normal display cases and put them in that. But we took that upon as an opportunity to maybe spend a little more, but to create something which will be more sustaining and preserving, because the objects are important for them. So let's talk in simple words. This is my last slide. Building and objects. So this I've just put it a few minutes back before I started this presentation. Building. So there might be some mistakes or something. I hope everything is right. Building and objects of culture and heritage need special care. We have to understand this. Special care means, it doesn't mean that if you have a degree in conservation or if you have some experience to show. No, that knowledge base, that exact thing that those objects and buildings need. Our heritage and museum policies, education structures are right now insufficient to provide that special care. We have museums and their curators, monuments and ASI, but there is a huge lack of knowledge where it is required. For example, now I have seen the curators in many museums, they're so good and they're so attached to the museum objects and they desperately want to cure the deteriorating ones and save them safely, store them safely. But neither they do have their own conservation lab, and if some do have, the conservator is not properly trained. They don't even have a degree at that time because it started quite late in our country. And nor an expert or interested senior who is not from this field of heritage. So they are generally from different, maybe there are some bureaucrats, they have come from different, and they're not permanent. So they don't have an interested senior to provide ideal display and store, to provide, I should say, the initiative for the ideal display and storage. Everyone talks about funding. Here I've seen even this in this talk. I couldn't listen to all the speakers. I still heard one and just the last part of one speaker, and I felt this is not right. We do have funds, but I have seen in front of my eyes when I go somewhere and I see, oh, in the valley, they have just already upgraded the museum, and whatever they have spent is on the old style display cases made in wood and with no proper sealing and microenvironment control. They could have just put a little thing to control the humidity. They have not left any space for that, and it is all wooden. So I have seen huge funds being used in wrong ways. There are buildings that got tens and crores of funding and were used in a misleading way, putting the actual conservation for which it was taken in a corner. I have also seen the funds being used in museum upgradation, which also included new display cases and storage, but the new display cases, even for the organic material, like paper, were made in wood and without any microenvironment control, basically with stagnant air and wooden off-gassing. So we may feel proud that we are doing a lot, but without proper knowledge and the will, I don't think right now we are moving in the right direction. So this was all about challenges in heritage conservation in India. Thank you so much.